Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2020 action crime drama John Henry, a film that is co-written and directed by Forbes, and it stars Terry Crews as John Henry and Ludacris as Hell. Now this is a film that focuses on Terry Crews' character John Henry, who is a huge muscular guy who turned his back on a life of crime many years previously in the 90s, and his cousin, who's played by Ludacris, went in completely the opposite direction and ended up getting deep into the life of crime, and is now at this time in the movie is the leader, he's the guy on top, and he's dealing drugs and human trafficking, all this kind of stuff. Not a nice guy. And this one day there is a Puerto Rican girl and her brother who come to America to look for their father, basically, and they end up getting certainly the girl gets taken by these human traffickers, and then eventually they end up on the doorstep of Terry Crews, who brings them into his home with his father, looks after them, but as you could imagine, this doesn't really go according to plan, and these human traffickers, led by Ludacris's character, are not going to take this lightly. Right. So what are my thoughts and feelings on this film, John Henry? Well, I think this is ultimately a flawed but watchable film. I think it tries to be more than it is. It mixes a few different directing styles, and by that I mean there are times when it tries to be like a Tarantino film, and by that I mean you'll get conversations of people sat around tables playing cards, just talking about random things, or sat in cars talking to each other about random things. Very Tarantino-like, just not as interesting conversations. And then you'll get these long sweeping shots with this rap music playing in the background that's supposed to, I don't know, give this urban edge to the film maybe. But to me, it always felt like it didn't really fit the film, because that's not who John Henry is. The character John Henry, played by Terry Crews, is like this gentle giant who, like I said, turned his back on the life of crime many years earlier, and he's now trying to live a quiet life. He seems quite a simple guy, and he's kind of looking after his father, who's in a wheelchair, but he's got a heart of gold, and he always tries to do the right thing. So when this Puerto Rican girl turns up on his doorstep, and he keeps trying to do the right thing, but ultimately it's not going to lead anywhere good. So I felt there were lots of this film that was there for filler, that didn't suit the film. Like I say, these long sweeping shots and slow-mo shots and this rap music in the background, it didn't suit his character John Henry, and that's what this film was about. I felt this character John Henry. And these weird conversations when we were supposed to be listening in on these, gang members talking around tables and playing cards and all that kind of stuff. The conversations weren't interesting, and it didn't really mean anything because the characters, you didn't know who they were, and they had no real part in the film. So it was full of filler. I think this film could have been done with a good 10 or 15 minutes shaving off it, and you could have really made a really tight film here. And it introduces characters, this film, and then does nothing with them. For example, John Henry goes to the supermarket and bumps into what you presume is like an old high school friend, and there was probably a thing between them. He got that impression. There was some spark and chemistry there, and then it didn't go anywhere. Nothing, really. So it felt like it was throwing a lot of ideas around this film, and only some of them worked. And the main one that worked for me was Terry Crews. I thought he was great at his character John Henry. You believed him. It was actually a really quite impressive performance. And the film, in a lot of ways, is kind of a retelling of the Clint Eastwood film Gran Torino. They are very similar in a lot of ways, apart from the Terry Crews John Henry character is vastly different than the Clint Eastwood character in that film. The Clint Eastwood character in that film was very confrontational and did not mess about, whereas Terry Crews' character was very gentle and peace-loving, and only really became violent in the film when he had no other choice, really. But there are some parallels between those two films. But I think this is a film that I think will divide a lot of people watching it, because it is a little bit messy. But the core story here and the core narrative is actually a very simple story, and it kind of works. And they try and flesh out this character, John Henry, and Ludacris's character by giving like flashbacks to them in the 90s, even though they're played by radically different looking actors. You have to suspend a little bit of disbelief there. But it kind of fleshes out their character, so I think they did a good job with John Henry's character and Ludacris's character. But a lot of the other characters didn't make a lot of sense. The Puerto Rican girl, that worked okay. She had this nice relationship with John Henry. It was almost like a father-daughter relationship, and that really worked. It never felt like it was anything else, and there was a real affection between the two. So you kind of understood why, at the end of the film, why he does what he does, John Henry, when he wants to pick up the sledgehammer and become violent. It does make sense. So it's a flawed film, this. Watchable. I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. I think it could have been better. Tried to be cleverer than it actually is, this film, and it toyed with a couple of ideas that just didn't work either in the film. But it might be worth checking out, certainly if you're a fan of Terry Crews, because I think he was actually quite good in this. So that's my review for John Henry. I hope you liked it. Thank you very much for watching, and of course I'll see you next time for more reviews on Screen Stars.